Welcome to worship with the Universalist Unitarian Church of Peoria. My name is the Reverend Innis. It's my great joy to be the minister with this congregation of people of all ages and at all stages of life. This is a beloved community striving to live into its mission of embracing freedom, growing in mind, body, and spirit, loving wholeheartedly, and adding to the wholeness and the healing of the world. We welcome people of all ethnicities and races, sexual orientation and gender identities, social and economic situations, politics, and abilities. We advocate for human rights, and we strive to be good stewards of our precious earth. And in living our mission, we recognize the deep network of relationship of which we are a part. And in that spirit, we recognize the Peoria people, for they were here long before the first European settlers came down the Illinois River. And so we take a moment during our service, as we have been asked to do, to recognize the Peoria people for who they were and for who they are today. I want to thank folks for joining us in person and online. We recognize how powerful it is to get together and how brave it is to come into an established community and just kind of see if there's a place for you. So welcome. Thank you for finding us. Thank you for coming back to us if you are returning, if you're a visitor returning. And help us get to know you. We have lots of name tags. We want to hear all the questions. We even maybe provide some answers, hopefully. So thank you for joining us. Stay after service for coffee and conversation in Fellowship Hall. And also, I think there was a note saying if I think the kitchen might need a little bit of help cleaning up after coffee hour as well, just FYI. Let me invite folks to check your respective devices to see if they are in worship mode, whether buzzy or silent. And I have a few notes for today. In response to the attacks on Iran, there is a snap protest by area activists this afternoon at University and Main Street down near Bradley. That'll be at 3 p.m. And in terms of our congregation announcements, this afternoon, let me highlight the young and emerging adults. They're meeting in the Religious Education Commons for a pizza and PowerPoint party. Get your geek on. And this is a chance to share together, share and gather a little bit about people's passions. Think about if someone asked you to talk about something for like an hour, what would you talk about, but then narrow it down to 10 minutes and then share. And so this is a receptive group that wants to hear what inspires you, what moves you, what intrigues you, and more. Next Saturday morning, we have kind of the second part of following on the Know Your Rights conversation we had earlier this month. We have a community defense conversation, identifying, monitoring, and documenting federal immigration actions. It'll be this coming Saturday, March 7th at 10 a.m. in Fellowship Hall. If you have questions about that, you're welcome to see Jesse Laughlin. Also, next Sunday, I want to invite folks to join us for the Stewardship Town Hall. This is, we do this on occasion opposite of congregational meetings, so this is kind of an informal congregational conversation, but it's a chance to hear about some of the basics about the church budget and also ask and answer some questions about how does the church money work. This is a good opportunity to kind of, if you're curious, if you want a little more transparency, this is the conversation and the place to be. And it'll be after coffee hour, we'll come back into or a little bit into coffee hour, grab a snack and then come right back in because we really need the big screens and so on to be able to do that well. And I think that will finish for our notes for the day. I want to invite you to join me for our opening hymn, number 346, Come Sing a Song With Me. I invite you to rise, embody your spirit. And I invite Jean Burke for our opening words.
Opening words are One Love by the Reverend Dr. Hope Johnson. We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits, here not by coincidence, but because we chose to journey together. We are active and proactive. We care deeply. We live our love as best we can. We are one, working, eating, laughing, playing, singing, storytelling, sharing and rejoicing, getting to know each other, taking risks, opening up, questioning, seeking, searching, trying to understand, struggling, making mistakes, paying attention, asking questions, listening, living our answers, learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility, being forgiven through grace, creating the beloved community. Together, we are one.
And I invite the Shepherd family forward to light our chalice.
We kindle this light to help us look upon the world anew. May it help us remember that reverent eyes lead to revelation.
In the glow of this hour, may attention be our prayer, the vehicle through which we love this world and enable it to love us back. That was Everywhere We Walk by Reverend Scott Taylor.
As we enter into our music for meditation, I invite you just to breathe with me. So appreciate music from Heidi Wilson, her song, Hold On. Hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. Hold on, hold on, my dear ones, here comes the dawn. During our music for meditation, all are welcome to come forward for a chance to light candles and make a small light to acknowledge what is with you and within you. If you're joining us online, I invite you to let these candles be for you. Let us now enter into our music for meditation. From the Reverend David Breeden. When it feels like lament is the only sound and need the only way of being, here is that one warm room where you know you belong. You know is waiting, open, ready. Here is that place where you remember where you are remembered in this too often too cold world. This place calls now softly. Come into the circle where you know you belong. This is the time for the sharing of joys and sorrows. We first have a note of gratitude from Mary Mahalan Kefar. She says, she offers a thank you for all the prayers for healing. She recovered from recent surgery to get some things corrected, and I think it sounds like she's healing well. So, Mary, it's good to see you today, too. We turn to condolences. We offer our sympathy to Joe Lakota. Her adopted son, Dale, known as Pike Moss, died suddenly on February 21st. Joe welcomed him as a child of her heart into her life 20 years ago. And in our larger world, the United States has launched an attack on Iran. And already, teachers and children and many others have died, in addition to those engaged in the conflict. The implications of war and politics are terrifying. My colleague, Reverend Micah Busi, offers a prayer. It is a tiny prayer. It seems like that's all sometimes we can offer is just some small voice. But they say, may we not meet this news as passively pessimistic observers, but as energized witnesses, assured that everyday life is sacred and that empire-addled attacks are never pathways to peace, but always failures of imagination. May all who are directly at risk of harm and hate be surrounded by safety. May our leaders either be visited by deep wisdom that edifies them or by deep resistance that replaces them. And may this fear-filled moment activate all of us to keep finding local ways to embody fierce love as we all work to make every small move toward collaboration become global liberation. Amen. Let us hold one more moment together. In our circle, we have room for all the names, all the milestones, all the joys and the sorrows that are among us. I invite us to hold one more moment in quiet. Shalom, salam, amen, and blessed be. Now I invite Jesse forward for our story.
This weekend at church, we did some imagining and dreaming and remembering about what it is that built this church and what our story is together. My story today, A Lamp in Every Corner, tells the story of what it means to build a church. By Janine K. Groschmeyer. Many years ago, in the land of Transylvania, in a mountain valley watered by quick rushing streams and shadowed by great mountains, there was a village of small wooden houses with dark shingled roofs. The people in the village were of the Unitarian religion. They wanted a church of their very own, a church set on the hillside and looking down upon the village, just as a mother looks down on her sleeping child. So all the people in the village gathered together. They all labored together. The stonemasons chiseled rock. The carpenters fashioned a great wooden door. The glaziers made beautiful glass. And piece by piece, the church was made whole and beautiful by the entire village. And at the end of the day, when it was finished, when their church was finally done, all the people in the village stood back to admire it. Their village had a church now, a church set upon the hillside that looked down upon the village. Whew. Now we will eat, announced an elder. And later tonight, we will come back and pray together. So the people of the village all went down the hillside. All, that is, except a small child named Zora and their father. They had brought their own dinner of bread and cheese, and they stayed behind. When finished, they went back inside, pushed open those carved wooden doors, and marveled at the beauty of the church they had built with their friends. "It is so beautiful," Zora cried. "Yes," said her father, looking around. "But father," she said suddenly, "our church is not finished." He said, "What do you mean?" She said, "There are no lamps on the lampstands." Her father said, No, it's okay. The light in our church comes from its people. You shall see." He rang the bell and called the people back to worship, and then took his daughter by the hand and watched the light come to the church. They waited on the grassy hill, and as the sun set behind the mountains, they saw in the growing darkness tiny points of light that came from all directions and steadily up the hill. Each family, Zora, is entrusted with a lamp, her father explained. Each family lights its own way here. "Where is our family's lamp?" Zora asked. "Your mother is carrying it. She will be here soon." And the many lights moved closer together, gathering into one moving stream, all heading the same way, growing larger and brighter all of the time. Zora's mother arrived, bearing a burning oil lamp in her hands. Father lifted Zora so she could reach her lamp high up on the pedestal. And soon the whole church was ablaze with a light in every corner. For all the people of the village had gathered together to pray and to sing. As the years passed and Zora grew, the bronze lamp came into her care. She kept it clean and polished, and when the bell rang out across the valley to call people to worship, she carried the lamp to church. And when the time came, she made more lamps and gave those lamps to her children. And they gave lamps to their children, and on throughout the years, even until today. And always, the light of truth and the flame of love from that Unitarian church on the hillside continued to grow and continued to show them and us the way. I wonder, who lights your lamp? I wonder how you will help that light continue. I invite the children and volunteers to join me in religious education.
So something that I think is important to note is how much this congregation really is self-governed, self-led, and self-funded. We are part of a larger denomination in the Unitarian Universalist Association, and each congregation handles its own governance, determines its leaders and criterion for membership. Each congregation creates and sustains its own budget, and each congregation is a thoroughly people-powered organism, serving with members and friends and families and community partners and more. 3/4 of the budget comes from the annual financial commitment called pledges, and a pledge can be paid at any time in the course of the fiscal year. So many people set up automatic payments through their banks, which is fantastic and useful because we love regular income and knowing when things will happen. We love to be able to keep the lights on, plan for paying our staff, and so much more. And automatic payments, if you're kind of curious, automatic payments are also why when we pass the plate, it's not necessarily like physically overflowing every Sunday. Because I know you have the heart to make the plate overflow every day, but we just don't see it on Sundays when you pass sometimes. But it is something to be able to make a gesture of giving, because giving is more than setting up a system. Giving has meaning, especially here. So we set aside the time in the service to take a collection and to connect with that act of giving. And the collection plate, any collection plate, from my perspective, is something that really represents one of those great details that says this is a place that is being sustained and cared for and has been so for some time and hopes to be so for far into the future. We also share a portion of our gifts with in the community through our Share the Plate practice. Half of the undesignated plate goes to a monthly recipient doing great work in the community. And so for the month of March, we are supporting the East Bluff Community Center Food Pantry. So the East Bluff Food Pantry operates 4 Saturdays a month. and folks are able to pick out some food and have a good meal, and so much more. And this really serves some of our most marginalized, some of our lowest income folks, and it's an essential source of food, especially in this time. And so, if you're looking at making a donation, if you use the envelopes in the pews, and if you're using cash, please be sure to put your name and if it's a pledge or where you want your donation. Also go to the QR code, and we want to make sure to give credit where credit is due. And now I want to thank folks for all of your gifts, and I invite the ushers to please come forward. Our reading is from the Reverend Rod Richards. It is all very well. It is all very well to speak of the interdependent web of all life and remind us that we are all connected. We are. But there are times when the loneliness strikes so deep that the only thing of which I am certain is that I am a solitary being. There are times when the only piece of belonging I feel is the longing. There are times when the interdependent web feels like just a mess of cobwebs. Feels like that in a basement or an attic or an abandoned house where I live. Times when the spirit of life and love are just words written in invisible ink on a postcard to myself. Wish you were here. Be with me now. Don't try to talk me out of how I feel with perfect theology. Stay beside me and carry my hope until I am ready to hold it again and be there for you. Here ends the reading. All right, let me invite our hymn support to come forward and join me. So we have a song. This is part of our learning some songs in the course of the month before the No Kings protest. They'll be on March 28th. Some of us were able to attend the Songs for the Resistance program that happened last week. We will be having a second rehearsal for that here at the congregation on March 22nd. So we'll be learning some of the pieces in the course of the month. And now this one is called We Are Here. And the first two lines have an echo, and the last line is in unison. So I think what we'll do is have I will lead and our hymn support will follow, and then I will invite folks to come and join us all together. All right? We are here. With our voices. Our love for each other will carry us through. We are here. With our voices. Our love for each other will carry us through. Oh, that's right, it goes twice. Yes, our love for each other will carry us through. All right, let's stop there. I'm going to invite the congregation to rise. We'll do this together. You sing, I sing, you sing, we sing together. Okay. We are here. With our voices. Our love for each other will carry us through. Yes, our love for each other will carry us through. We are here. With our voices. Our love for each other will carry us through. Yes, our love for each other will carry us through. We are here. With our anger. Our love for each other will carry us through. Yes, our love for each other will carry us through. We are here. With our courage. Our love for each other will carry us through. Yes, our love for each other will carry us through. All right, last time. We are here. With our hope. Our love for each other will carry us through. Yes, our love for each other will carry us through. One more time. Yes, our love for each other will carry us through. Thank you. The story, A Lamp in Every Corner, is one that has this wonderful ideal of building the church. It is a fantastic model of how community is created physically and spiritually and passed down from generation to generation. Each person in the story contributes their skill to the construction, to the supporting of the people doing the work. Any task, every task, people can do everything and anything. There are materials chosen with care. The art and the aesthetics are meant to inspire as well as illustrate the values and the dreams of the congregation and to speak to the values of the faith. Each family, each person brings a light into the church and brings a light out into the world. Now, what's also true is the reality of construction and projects in voluntary organizations. It's also how much just the making it happen happens between people and the day to day. Behind the woodwork and the window glazing are conversations about the budget and the quality of the glass. Behind the choice of paint and art are, shall we say, passionate discussions about colors, with many opinions, people usually having at least two. And the design itself calls up questions of access for maintenance, how to heat and cool the space, the inventory of light bulbs. Let me tell you the saga of light bulbs that we have right here. Oh my goodness. And much more. I have observed all of this and more when the congregation in which I grew up did a major renovation of the interior of the building, much to everybody's relief. It really needed it. And it's still there, and I'm still thrilled. And I feel a similar kind of sentiment about both the beauty and the spirit of the execution of the work and the practicality of what it takes to make a space when I come into this space as well. Whether or not we know it, when we enter a community, we see the details, the expression. We see what went into making this possible. It might not be conscious, it's often not conscious, but there is something about walking into a prepared space that reveals the heart, the care, and the energy and the time. I think to me, this is the story and coming into a congregation of buildings such as this reminds me of the fractal nature of religious community, because every detail is reflected in the smallest of things, and it reflects out to the largest of the scale. You can take one piece, which is the pulpit, and from there build out the whole church. And how is it wanting to be in the community? And this is always a work in progress. The congregation is always aware of its composition and the details and the spirit and the mission. It's always a work. It's always a piece. It is not just a static piece of art, but a living fractal. It is spiritual and material. It is human and mortal. It is generational and eternal. And it is not taken for granted, if at all possible. And this is part of our theology and part of our work, is that we are always open to new revelation and always committed to keep building and learning and growing based on what we have and what we have been and into where we are now and into the future. I'm reminded of my colleague, Reverend Mark Morrison Reed, who's an African American man and one of our elders in Unitarian Universalism. And he talks about the central task of religious community. He says, "The central task of religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice." And he goes on, "It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed." At its best, religious community does what the story was telling us, brings us in, reveals and connects us, and then sends us out into the world again. And this includes all the expressions of our far-ranging liberal theology community. We have the full theological range in the house in any one moment. It makes the preaching really interesting. We have the full range of social location amongst us as well. and who will respond to what stories, what metaphors, and who will not connect with what's being said. We have the range of orientation and gender expression. I think we even have some range in politics and much more. And we had a really good conversation about the congregation and hopes and fears and so on, and a look at its history on Friday evening. There were successes and struggles and patterns, and these were all part of the conversation to inform us about uh, what's the story of the congregation now and what it might be for the future. But I also want to pause here and recognize that religious community is a real challenge for some of us. For some of us, we have a deep personal history of religious trauma, or at least a difficult religious past, of leaving faith communities, of leaving even our family, of being rejected by our family because we do not believe as they believe. And we also have among us folks who have looked at how religion behaves in our day and age and how religion has behaved in history and has said religion is not worth it because it's been used as a justification for war and oppression and colonization. But what we get to do here is recognize that and hold that. So I know that in any given Sunday, there's folks who are in here saying, I'm not sure I'm okay with being in the church, but I need the community. And I just need to recognize that. Reverend Sharon Dittmar, who is our contact with the Unitarian Universalist Association, spent Friday and Saturday with us. She drove over from Cincinnati. And we gathered, folks came together on Friday and we had potluck, we had an abundance of food, and folks were able to talk about our fears, our hopes, and some of the congregation's history. And we kind of brought together some of the themes that showed up in that and in the conversation. And I wanted to share some of those high points with you today. So first and foremost, and I'm going to say this is no ranked order. I didn't get all the details. I'm not trying to reproduce the whole conversation. If you want to know more, I'd love to talk with you later. First and foremost was a clear and strong support for children and youth religious education. People are here because the education programs are good, because it is a welcoming space for our youngest people, and people want it to be even better and maybe even more children and youth. I mean, every Sunday I am a fan of the people that pour out of the sanctuary, but we have room for more. And there's a desire to have a true youth group, junior high youth, senior high youth as well. And folks are hoping that we can keep growing in how we welcome lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, asexual, intersex, and plus. Folks also wanting to have us be more welcoming for folks who are Black, Indigenous, people of color. People wanting us to do better, and we get to be called to challenge to do better ourselves. Now, Protestant faiths, in case you didn't know, that predominantly white Protestant faiths have a real struggle with racial diversity. Now, whether or not that you want racial diversity to be a goal, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend because it's not about numbers, right? It's about how we show up. We want to show up with our language, with our understanding, with our self-awareness, and as true partners that can be trusted. We can show up in those ways. Then we can build more relationships and see where that goes from there. I don't know about you, but I've already taken note of when Juneteenth is being celebrated here in Peoria, for example. There was a desire for more justice work, things that are real, tangible, with a true impact on our neighbors. In addition to, we do some of that. We also try to do policy work. We also show up for protests and so on. So we have a range of justice work, and people are saying we can do more. We want to do more. Folks were wanting us to simply show up in the community more. So amplify visibility and presence. And if you don't know, I'm going to say the administrative team and I and other main volunteers, we've been better. We have been doing a whole lot better with promotions, with calendars. And if you're all over Facebook, then we try to be all over Facebook as well, for example. Um, and we're so much more visible than past decades, and we can do better. And we have a couple of things in mind to help us do that in the coming year. But we also were challenged in this conversation on Friday to reach out to folks who aren't particularly religious per se, to the atheists, to the agnostics, and others. Now, this one is interesting because what we found is, of course, in the visitors coming through and getting to know us, is that for some people, we are not religious enough. And for other folks, we are way too religious. So we seem to land right here. And so we just try to do our best. But we can do better. I'm sure there's ways that we can do better. And if you have thoughts about that, again, I'd love to hear that. People just want to connect with other people. That was one of the big hopes is too. People just want to keep connecting. I know folks have deep friend groups here, and folks are wanting to meet more people who are both like them and different than them. We just want to meet different kinds of people to engage, to learn, and to make connections. And one of the most tender hopes showed up from our children. It was simply a wish for kindness. They simply wanted people to be kind. And I think we kind of collectively agree that's probably a reflection of our time when there was so much ugliness and cruelty. They were simply called to be kind. Let me offer a few of the fears. So those were some of the hopes. Let me offer a few of the fears. One of the fears is that there's not enough young adults, the young and emerging adults. And I'll say it takes time to develop a good group, stability, consistency, and so on. There's a fear that there's not enough children. We have lots of room in the RE wing. We have a lot of activity, and we have room to spare. So let's see what else we can do. Invite your friends and neighbors. There was a fear that folks are involved with their own groups and not necessarily interconnected well. Siloing was the word that was used, and that was expressed with both people's groups and projects as well as some of the social justice work, that maybe we're not talking to each other as well as we could be. There were some fears expressed about the financial stability and security of the congregation. There's a fear that we are perceived as anti-Christian because we don't talk a lot about Jesus and because we speak about other faiths. This is so interesting that I have to unpack this some more. So if you have unpacking thoughts on that, I'd love that too, because it's so intriguing. Like, how are we perceived in the community in terms of welcoming, in terms of religious language, and more? So the question might be, are we as tolerant and inclusive as we say? And are there expectations about what people should need to believe in order to fit in? Are there expectations about what people should believe to be a part of the Unitarian Universalist Church? One of the fears, one of the struggles is the impact of the loss of people who left during COVID, and also concern for the burnout of the people who have continued and have done so much of the work to maintain the congregation and grow the congregation. There's a real desire to re-engage with folks who have not returned in person from the pandemic. And I'd say part of that is a certain loss and a certain grief as well. People miss their friends. And that's important. There's concerns about resolving difficult issues. Earlier this year, I talked about the conflict avoidance guide to resistance and the real challenge that is Midwest nice. That it is a risk to kind of say a little bit of truth and then see how that is received. And I'm so glad that people came on Friday night and had a little bit of truth to share. Because if we don't have those conversations, then we don't know. And we can't do better. And I know one of the difficult concerns is also, again, coming back to financial status. So I invite folks to come join us at the town hall next week so we can have some more of that financial conversation. I think one of the existential questions that showed up in the hopes and the fears is whether I have a place. Is there a place for me here? This is one of the core questions I have heard in the entirety of growing up in my church life, in Unitarian Universalism, and so much more. In part because people come in so often from other places where they have been rejected or have felt not welcome. And I think that, am I welcome here, keeps being one of our core questions. And hopefully we can take care of that as individuals. And I think it's also one of the great ministries we offer into the world, is that we try to make a welcoming place because we are more healed if more of us are welcome and feel that we are included and have a voice and a vote and agency and people who care about us and so much more. It matters that we show up here together. So all of these hopes and concerns are consistent with the congregation. Every congregation, any congregation, they are absolutely normal. And they're important to say out loud. I'm sure if I can think about what was the story behind the story of the folks building the church in that Transylvanian town, that they would have their own versions of these. And they would not be terribly different, I would guess. We spent a little time on history, talking about how Universalist congregations were often founded on a message of love and speaking to the working class populations. This congregation met in various buildings, was able to have a church, but also was bound with a couple of mortgages to make that happen. The congregation was very socially engaged in the 1800s, mid-late 1800s. But one of the mortgages came due, and the church didn't have the money in the late 1800s. And Lydia Moss Bradley, as we have been knowing, is patron saint of Peoria. As a member of the congregation, bailed out the church and also wrote a letter to the church to say, don't become financially dependent on one member again. Laid it out. Thank you, Ms. Bradley. And the church went on. We showed up at a national level with the popular lecture series that was here in the early to mid 1900s. At that time, this was the largest Universalist congregation in the nation in its building downtown. Moving ahead a little bit to another moment when the church showed up socially, in 1965, when the minister, Fred Leshane, felt called to respond to Dr. King's call to Selma at that critical social moment in our nation's history. The board disagreed with Reverend Leshane wanting to go to Selma. And I think even the board president wasn't thrilled with it either. And the board president saw how important this was that Reverend Leshane respond to the call and said, you go and do this and I will take care of the board. And they did. And that's a powerful moment of witness and disagreement, and yet also understanding a moment of importance. was a financial crisis in the 70s, in partially as a result of the conflict over the Vietnam War. The minister at the time, James Wilkes, preaching against the Vietnam War. We had many members leave, and also leave in response not just to the anti-war message, but also to the presence of draft counseling here at the congregation. And that financial crisis that followed after was a moment where the members showed up and tried to establish more financial stability and security. I'll jump ahead a little bit. After a series of kind of shorter term ministers following that concern, we have the Reverend Michael Brown, who arrived in 1991 and stayed for 27 years. If you're new to the congregation, this is a lot. And this is notable. And Reverend Michael's ministry was a time of stability, of growth, also the huge task of letting go of the previous building downtown that was built for the congregation. Was beautiful, but was impossible to update. Process of letting go of that building, that beloved space, and choosing and creating a new space here. A whole new ministry, in essence, here, but with the continuation of the congregation. I can only imagine how hard it was to let go of that beautiful place where people had been married, memorials had happened, music sung, children celebrated, and so much more. How powerful it was to move the lights and the glass from there to here. I think one of the more recent moments I think we need to just address a little bit in the history is Reverend Michael's retirement after 27 years, around Christmas 2018. That was a big transition. It was both a transition in ministry, it was a transition in generations as well. And wouldn't you know, the cherry on top was COVID. Bonus, global disaster. This is no small thing. From 2018 to 2020 to 2022, it has been a whole lot of change. That first year, I was so privileged to be with to be chosen to be with this congregation. But boy, that first year was tough. If you haven't been here before, just picture we have this beautiful space. Beautiful space. Now, not having anybody in the building except me in the pulpit and a camera. The opportunity did come with that to upgrade the audiovisual system. We had a generous gift from a friend of the church that helped, along with member contributions, helped with a major refit. We had never had cameras before. The screens are much bigger and so on. There was a picture earlier this week that I was reminded from 5 years ago. I snapped this picture when I came in to record a service one evening. And it is scaffolding there and scaffolding there. Jean's laughing at this. Scaffolding, and then pulpit and camera. And nobody saw what was outside the frame. So I shared it. I will never take for granted the ability to be with people. I don't think any of us will. And there's also, as we were talking about themes in the course of the Friday evening, some of the themes that came up were all the changes, the grief of different losses, and also the resilience of the congregation finding a way again and again. There were, I really appreciate Kathy Carter, our wonderful historian, for creating a list of major social events, social justice activity, social conscious activity. In the 1860s, the congregation was instrumental in founding a children's home, the education of young women with the Industrial Society, and with bringing Girl Scouts to Peoria in 1917. There was a food pantry in the basement of the church during the Great Depression, and so much more. These are all ways in which the congregation was kept building itself and also was engaged with the community and engaged with the times. It was a lived theology. It was theology in action and relevant and making a difference. One of the themes I just want to recognize and want to give permission to, if there's still feelings or still things that need to be processed, it's okay. Because grief has no calendar. Grief abides no clock. Our feelings are our feelings, regardless of time or calendars or room. And there is still a feeling of folks who were here during Reverend Michael's ministry and folks who've come after. And it's okay to recognize that. And our story continues with that. The congregation welcomed me in 2020. And the congregation 5 years ago this month installed me as the minister. And again, that was a moment of a few people in the room, cameras, Zoom, lots of people visiting online. We found a way to do it, even in the most difficult and a bit heartbreaking context. But we were doing this together in being welcoming, in learning and growing, being engaged in the here and now, hoping for more growth and more opportunity in the future. We were doing and succeeding in what Mark Morrison Reed called the central task of religious community in the larger service to the spirit of life. This is no small thing. And it will keep being in process. There were many questions and thoughts that were unanswered in the course of our conversation on Friday, and that's okay too. We get to go forth and keep being in the moment, keep responding as we can, keep being present to each other, and keep doing this work because alone our vision is too narrow and alone our strength is not enough. But together our vision widens and our strength keeps being renewed. Let us go forth in that spirit of love and courage and renewal. Amen. I want to invite you to rise in body and spirit for our closing hymn, number 347, Gather the Spirit.
To Observe This Splendid World by Laura Stevens. We extinguish this flame, but not our focus. We quench this candle, but not our quests. We observe this splendid world to witness each other. These we continue all the moments of our lives.
As we leave the sacred hour, may the welcome we receive become the welcome we extend. Let us meet the world with open hearts, open hands, and the audacity to build spaces where every soul feels at home. Our worship is ended. Let our service begin.